What is Donald Trump hiding? Senate Democrats, led by Chuck Schumer, are turning up the heat, demanding the immediate release of the long-awaited Epstein files. The pressure is intensifying, and the questions are getting louder. Who is named in those files, and why are they still being kept secret? Trump promised transparency, but so far the files remain locked away. Stay right here, because what we're about to reveal could change everything.
Okay, thank you, everybody. This has been very erudite. All right. Anyway, let me thank Senators Klobuchar and Padilla for joining us. Look, what the country saw last night was not a State of the Union. It was Trump's state of delusion. For nearly 2 hours, the president inflated his ego, rewrote reality, and offered zero solutions to the problems American families are struggling with every night. I'll bet there were just as many people last night discussing how to pay the bills as there were watching the State of the Union. President's in a bubble. He doesn't have a clue about what the average American people are going through. He just didn't ignore the affordability crisis. He mocked it. Can you imagine sitting down at the table and say, we can't meet our electric bill, what's going to happen? And you hear the President of the United States is mocking your inability to pay because prices have gone up. While President Trump stood up there congratulating himself, Americans were confronting the reality. Ground beef up 11%, coffee up 41%, rents up, health care costs up, electricity up. Families are spending this year over $1,700 more because of Trump's tariff tax. And he's gloating about it. He's gloating about it. Families don't need a 2-hour speech. They need relief at the checkout counter, especially a speech that hardly mentioned any solutions for the American people. You know, look, Trump spent a lot of time praising himself. He patted himself on the back so often that I thought he might fall down. But the American people didn't want hype. They didn't want the kind of stuff he did. And he lied. He just lies. He makes it up. He said we've gained manufacturing jobs. We've lost over 100,000 manufacturing jobs since he became president. He said job creation is on the rise. No. It's at the lowest point in 20 years outside of a recession. I think it was 2003 that job creation on a percentage basis was as low. And then, incredibly, Trump put J.D. Vance in charge of investigating corruption. Well, in one way, he's a good choice, because if he wants to investigate corruption, he doesn't need a task force. He doesn't even need a car. All he has to do is walk down the hall and start investigating his boss, where there's huge amounts of corruption. He can start with the billionaires bankrolling Trump's vanity projects. He can look at corrupt pardons that the president gave. He can look at the luxury jet gifted from the Middle East. And most of all, glaring of all, he can ask the president why the Epstein files, all of them, haven't been released. Last night was all hype and no help. If you're a family hoping to hear how your costs would go down, you got nothing. If you're a worker hoping to hear how your job would be protected, you got nothing. If you're a voter hoping for accountability, you got deflection. Last night's speech was an utter failure for Trump. All hype, all fluff, not what the American people who are having trouble paying for beef and so many other things wanted. And just lastly, the contrast between Donald Trump and Governor Spanberger and Senator Padilla, who gave a great speech as well. They talked about lowering costs. They talked about protecting rights. They talked about restoring integrity. Compare Trump's speech to their speech, and Americans will know why it's Democrats fighting for them, and it's easy to figure out why people prefer Democrats to Republicans when it comes to all of the polling data we have seen. Senator Klobuchar.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks, Chuck. So I think all you have to do is listening to the opening salvo of Donald Trump's State of the Union last night to know that he is wildly out of touch where so many Americans are. These were his words. He said that Americans feel better, richer, stronger than ever before. He said that is the state of our union. And I think we know very well that isn't true. You've all seen the numbers of where Americans feel, so it's not just anecdotes. But I thought the most interesting thing that I did yesterday was listen to some of the guests that my colleagues had brought to the State of the Union, including Senator Duckworth's guest, a guy named Jeremy from rural Illinois, whose premiums had gone up so much that he had to change health care plans because, of course, Donald Trump's and the Republican Party's failure to do anything about extending the tax credits. He then moved on to saying he had to get a plan with this huge deductible. He found out he had diabetes. He didn't even know if he can go to the doctor. And he started crying at what was, let's face it, press conferences that we have all the time. And he couldn't stop crying. That's the guy I thought of when I was sitting there. I thought of Senator Warnock's guest, who's trying to run a rural hospital and has seen these Medicaid cuts. I thought about my guest, a guy named Sean Severson, who is the last thing a political activist you have ever met. He is a brewer from Moorhead, Minnesota, on the North Dakota border, and he is just trying to run a business with 9 employees, and he has been walloped by these tariffs and walloped by the attacks on Canada and the lack of Canadian tourists coming to northern Minnesota and across the country. That is the real State of the Union for so many people. And since the last time, last Tuesday, when Chuck met with all of you, we have seen the tariff decision by the Supreme Court. And for a lot of the senators, we have seen already our small businesses coming to us and say, wait a minute, he's doing this again. He's doubling down. Now there's going to be more uncertainty. We have over 100 of changes to tariffs already, and it's only going to get worse. So that chaos that we're talking about, it's not just not enough staffing at the VA or farmers trying to get loans at the USDA or the horror of 3,000 ICE agents roaming the streets in the metro, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and also, by the way, in our rural areas. It is also about the economic chaos by this man's policies. So what Abigail Spanberger and Alex Padilla asked yesterday was basically, is Trump working for you? And the clear answer for so many in this country is no. And what I was most struck by at the State of the Union, and I'll end with this, 107 minutes, 1 hour and 47 minutes, and he spent 2.9 minutes on affordability. These are NBC statistics. They must be correct. And 3.8 minutes on health care. So that's what we're dealing with right now, with someone who's the number one things on people's minds he barely even talked about. So when you ask me what's the State of the Union, I'd say you better listen to Americans and not to the guy that was in the House chamber for 2 hours last night.
Senator Padilla, who our caucus gave him huge plaudits today because he did such a good job. Even those of us who didn't understand all of his speech thought he did a great job.
Thank you. Well, I'll give away the secret. My response to the State of the Union was not too unlike Governor Spanberger. We focused on some of the same themes, and before I get to those, let me just say, going into the State of the Union, a lot of people asked, including many of you yesterday, what we were expecting. And we predicted, well, there's going to be some lies, and there's going to be some more lies, and probably some more lies on top of that, in addition to some misrepresentations and distractions from the real-world harmful impacts of the Trump and Republican agenda and track record from this last year. And unfortunately, we were right. Lies after misrepresentations for the 1 hour and 47 minutes. Not a prioritization of what we think is important. Governor Spanberger and I both spoke to the challenge that so many working families are having just paying the bills. Donald Trump is a president who campaigned on bringing down prices, and he's done anything but. Under him, prices continue to go up for groceries, for housing, for utilities, electricity costs. He tried to talk about that, but the numbers are real. Electricity costs are on the rise. Couldn't help but also acknowledge the fear and the terror that so many communities and families across the country are feeling with the out-of-control operations by the Department of Homeland Security. Yeah, ICE and CBP agents, not just detaining people with judicial warrants, actually entering people's homes without a judicial warrant, the violence and cruelty with which they're holding people indiscriminately, including a lot of legal immigrants with work authorization, including citizens of the United States, including veterans. And we're increasingly becoming aware of the horrendous conditions inside a lot of these detention centers, which they're working feverishly to expand. And let me be clear, it's not just about immigration. It's about our fundamental rights being violated as they pursue a mass deportation agenda with unnecessary quotas. When people are detained, arrested, or even shot and killed in Minnesota for exercising their First Amendment rights, that's a danger to our democracy. When people are being detained without that judicial warrant that is normally required, that is a danger to our democracy. And that leads me to the third area that I emphasized yesterday. Elections. Trump said it loudly and clearly. He wants to take over elections in America. Gee, I wonder why. He's still not over the fact that he lost the 2020 election. And they've been setting the stage for months, weaponizing the Department of Justice to demand the voter rolls and the personal information of voters across the country. This suggestion that he wants to eliminate the vote by mail opportunity, this executive order failed and now SAVE Act legislative attempt to not require voter ID. Let's be real as to what it is. It's a voter purge, voter suppression piece of legislation. The Republican Trump record has been so bad, not just unpopular. You all have seen the polls. It's been so damaging to American families that their only chance to hold on to power this November is to rig the elections. You think they'd see an opening and pivot on policy and work with us, whether it's reining in out-of-control ICE and CBP agents by imposing common-sense reforms, or walking away from the illegal and counterproductive tariff policies that are raising costs on all of us. The president doubled down, and we're going to double down on our legislative efforts, our legal efforts, our outreach to the American people, and we're going to get ready to vote this November and bring about real change. In closing, I just want to emphasize that theme of elections from here. I'm excusing myself to a spotlight hearing that we're having, Democrats on the Rules Committee, shedding light on what is happening with these threats and what it means not just for us in Congress, but for state and local officials. We have with us the Attorney General of California, Rob Bonta. We have one of the commissioners from Fulton County, Georgia, where Tulsi Gabbard, the head of intelligence, joined the FBI in a raid to confiscate materials from the 2020 election. They got to stop living in the past. Accept the laws. Let's work together to improve people's lives. That's what we're going to stand up for, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Alice. Yes, go ahead.
Can you walk us through where negotiations over DHS funding stand? Have you talked to the White House who has plans to? And would you support pulling it apart to fund Coast Guard, FEMA, other avenues, and separate it out as some in the House of proposed? Do you Jeffrey supports that?
Let me say two things. First, we sent them a proposal a week ago Monday. We still haven't heard back. Crickets. And so it's in their court. As for getting this done, we all want to see TSA and the other agencies funded. That's up to the Republicans. Very simply, all they have to do is agree with our simple ideas that every police department just about in America follows, and we'll get it all done. It's plain and simple. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. The President last night briefly made his case for why strikes in Iran might be necessary. You've been briefed by top administration officials now. Would you personally support strikes?
Look, I can't talk about the briefing. It's classified, but what they talked about is very serious. And the American people, the administration should come clean and tell the American people their goals. Yes.
Thank you, leadership. Republicans have said they're going to cut campaign ads. With the moment last night when Democrats remained seated when President Trump said, "Stand if you support Americans over illegal immigrants." Why didn't Democrats stand?
Of course we support Americans. We're not going to be a prop in Donald Trump's little show.
I wanted to ask you about the University of New Hampshire poll that is out that shows Plattner up almost 40 points on Mills, Plattner up 11 on Collins, but basically even with Plattner up 11 on Collins, basically even with Mills.
Yeah.
Did you guys pick the wrong?
Polls come and go. There are different polls that are all over the lot. We're going to win in Maine, and frankly, Mills is the only Democrat who's won statewide in 20 years.
Leader Schumer?
Yes.
There's reporting that some Epstein files have been withheld or removed related to Trump. Are you worried that there are still files that were not released in regards to the
Yes, I think the process in terms of releasing the files has been terribly flawed. We demanded that all the files be released. They have not been. And the Attorney General and Trump himself are just derelict. And the American people keep asking a question that doesn't serve them well, doesn't serve Bondi and Trump well. What the hell are you hiding?
Is there any
Thank you,
recourse for
everybody.
Congress?